think back to when you had a rough week. Maybe something at work just happened and it kind of ruined your mood, or maybe some other things in your personal life has happened and it just kind of put a damper to everything. And usually at the end of the week, you know, you're kind of wore out and exhausted because a lot just happened that week. At least I know that's how I feel. And usually when I'm wore out and exhausted, I kind of want to treat myself since that week I just had. My go-to is chocolate chip cookies. So that being said, today I'm going to have a demonstration on how to make chocolate chip cookies. I'm going to organize this demonstration into 3 parts. That 3 parts goes into the ingredients, steps into combining the ingredients, and what to do during baking, as well as everything afterwards. So without further ado, let's get into baking. Okay, so first things first is you want to gather your ingredients. Luckily for chocolate chip cookies, it's a basic dessert you can make because it usually has every ingredient that you already have in your kitchen. The only thing I'd say you probably wouldn't have is either baking brown sugar or the actual chocolate chips. And that being said, I forgot to get eggs. I got my eggs. So the first step into making the cookies is that you need to get 14 tablespoons of butter, which of this is preferably unsalted, and then a cup of granulated sugar, so we're going to do that, and then half a cup of packed brown sugar. So I'm going to get the butter out first. And then when you are, the first thing you want to do the sugars and the butter first is because once you mix them with the mixer, it's going to make them to cream, and your butter has to be softened before you do this, because if you get your butter right out of the fridge, it's going to make your cookies either too soft or too hard. Well, it'll make them too hard and then they will not stick. So that is very crucial. I usually typically wait 15 minutes until I start cooking, or just kind of do whatever I'm doing before and kind of hold the butter in my hands, because the heat will kind of soften that butter for you. So now we need the cup of sugar. And while you're measuring everything out, you want to do very precise measurements, because if you do too much or too little, it will just easily mess up the entire thing, because every ingredient has a special part of everything. So usually I do is I kind of measure it out with the back of my spoon over a trash can. I get the trash can. I didn't put enough sugar in that to be able to level it out. So just do this. See, it's precisely leveled out. And next, this is very crucial too for the brown sugar. You have to pack brown sugar because of the moisture it has in it, because then it's just not going to make your cookies right. Just no matter what you're baking, you have to pack the brown sugar. And what I mean by packing is like you just get a spoon and you kind of just push it to the side and just pack it. It's very tedious, but you gotta do what you gotta do. But then once everything is all into the bowl, you'll want to combine them into the cream. And after I'll do that, I will show you what the cream will look like. Another thing I hate about this, it just gets so messy, but that might also just be me, because I'm a mess. But you know, it's okay. It adds a little touch to everything. You see I'm still packing it until it gets to the very top. nicely packed brown sugar. Okay. And just to point out, the reason why I had the brown sugar closed up and like sealed very tightly, because if you do not close up brown sugar, it will harden quickly and then you just can't use it anymore. Just because it's like so, just the properties of the brown sugar is just, that's how it is. Now it's gonna get a little loud because I'm gonna turn the mixer on, and it's kind of a jank mixer. It's $10, but it'll do its job. You just cannot hand mix it because it will not give it the same effect as you use in a mixer. So you can't just get like a wooden spoon and call it a day. It's just not gonna do the job. Here. It makes a mess every time I do it, but usually I'll get a rubber spatula because your dough is going to stick to the batter regardless, like at any point. But this is kind of like, as you can tell, it's much of a creamier consistency, and this is pretty much what you want to get. That's not working, but it's okay. You don't have to get out of this the beaters, but I just chose to because I just want to. It's not nothing you really have to do. Okay, so next what you want to do is add the 2 eggs and the vanilla. So you're just gonna want to use 2 eggs. I hate cracking eggs. Every time I try to, I just end up getting yolk on me. That's why I bought the napkin, because it's gross. And we get eggshells in them sometimes. You know, who doesn't like a crunch? I'm kidding. That's why I also got the spoons, because I knew I'd be making a mess and get eggshells and something. But you know, it's okay. So next thing you want to use is a teaspoon of vanilla. Here's a teaspoon. Here's our vanilla. Oh, I guess I gotta open it. I usually put this over a trash can too, just because you might make a mess, and it's rather be safe than sorry. And just put it in there. And then you'll mix this again too. This is kind of the consistency you want. It's still more of a cream, but obviously since you added the eggs to it, it's gonna look wetter. Okay, so next we want to add in our dry ingredients. And that will be our flour, baking soda, and salt. But the first thing we're gonna use for that is the flour. So we're going to use 2.5 cups of flour, and you want to use all-purpose flour. There are many different flours out there in the market. So it's very crucial that you get all-purpose flour. Self-rising, I think it has baking soda in it, so it's not going to do the same job as all-purpose flour. And there's also like, there's just a bunch of different flours. They have like almond flour for like gluten alternatives, but we're not doing that today. We're just doing your basic chocolate chip cookie. And usually if I had like a bigger bag, I would just scoop like the whole measuring cup in it and then level it out, but this one's kind of small, so we're not going to do that today. We're just going to get the spoon and pour it in there and make a mess. And then you want to get your spatula again and just level that out. And usually when I use the, when I put the flour in, I don't put it all in at once and then mix. I would, since it's like 2 cups, I'm gonna put the 1 cup in here, mix, put another cup, mix, and the half cup mix, because sorry, if we do it that way, then it will make a better consistency and also help you from over mixing your batter, because when over mixing in the batter, the gluten in the flour causes it to be more like a dry, and you don't want a dry cookie. Who wants a dry cookie? And when you do it just like that, like in the increments, it doesn't have to be perfect when you mix it, just as you get most of it, because at the end, like when you have all the flour in, it should be perfect at that point. But you can mix them. See, sometimes you can pour the flour in too. We just want to change things up here, but that's okay. So I realized I was making more mess, and the amount of times I talked about I've been making messes today, we really don't need any more. Okay, right there. And don't forget to always level out your flour, or just every ingredient, because you want to have precise ingredients so everything will turn out perfect. To our last cup. Got half a cup to do, and then we'll be done for the flour. This is what the consistency should look like. So next you want to put in the 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I really cannot stand getting baking soda because it's always in this like little hole and it makes things hard. But usually I kind of just try to like level it out by using the top of it. That's pretty much good. That's pretty good. I used a half a teaspoon, so I'm going to use it twice because you need 1 teaspoon. Okay. Just put it in there. Then we're going to use half a teaspoon of salt. And with the salt, I just do how I did with the white sugar and the flour. I'm just going to put it on there and then level it out. our chocolate chips. Today I am using semi-sweet, just regular sized chocolate chips. You can literally use whatever. You can use white chocolate if you want to, milk chocolate, dark chocolate, it doesn't matter. I just prefer semi-sweet. And some recipes call for like a certain amount. I really like my chocolate chip cookies to be chocolatey, so I just go on and put the whole thing in there. Because why not? It's the best part. And now that everything's mixed, you're gonna want to start putting them onto your non-stick baking sheet, or if you don't have a non-stick one, you can just use a cooking oil and just spray it on there. It'll do the same thing, just as long as it doesn't stick, because you do not want your cookies to stick. Usually, there are spoons that measure out a perfect size for you that you can buy, but that's just doing too much, and I just don't want to waste my money on something small like that. So you can either use an ice cream scoop, but I personally, I wash my hands and I'll roll them out into like a golf ball size. I'll show you what it is, but it really doesn't matter. It's just kind of like up to you sort of deal. But you just don't make them bigger than a golf ball. So, and once you put them out onto the cookie sheet, you want to have them at least like 1 inch apart. With this specific cookie sheet, I usually make 4 rows of 3. It depends on, sometimes you can like roll them out, sometimes they're still like a weird consistency. They'll turn out the same. They just get a little sticky. And yeah. So with the cookies, this is pretty much all you would really have to do. The oven is preheated to 350 already, so we're just gonna put them in there. And you can usually wait 8 to 10 minutes. It really just depends on the oven you have. But usually when they're done, to tell is that the edges will be like a golden brown color. And yeah. And just rinse my hands off. I'm setting a timer on our microwave for 8 minutes, and that's when I'm gonna check it and see if it needs any longer. And yeah. So, like I said, when they're cooking, just make sure, just try to keep an eye on them at the 8-minute mark. That's usually what I do. And again, when the edges are golden brown, that's when you would start to pull them out. Because if you wait any longer, they're gonna overcook and they'll be all hard. So, to wrap up everything that I have shown you all how to make cookies, you can tell they're very easy to customize and make it however you want, because every ingredient is kind of different. Like if you wanted more flour to it, it'll be more of a cake consistency and everything like that. And you have to make sure you measure everything out precisely, because if not, it'll become it's there's so many ways you can mess up. Believe me, I've had my failed batches multiple times. I've had some that were just flat, and just the edges really just looked like a pancake with chocolate chips. It was just disgusting. But I hope this was a good little trick for the end of your nice little hectic week, because this is what I do when I'm really stressed out with that long week. So, like I said, I hope this is fun, quick, and easy to do after a long day. Thank you.